What's going on, everybody? Welcome to JohnnyVTV Live here on this Saturday, April 1st, April Fool's Day, but we're not telling any jokes today. All seriousness. My darling co-host, Joe, not feeling well today, so I brought in a great guest and co-host for the day, Mr. Tanner Kern of DraftKings. Welcome to JohnnyVTV Live, man. Thank you so much for being here.
Johnny, it's a pleasure, man. We are talking before the show. Super pumped to do this and hopefully get some winners today. I got a huge slate all across the board.
Yeah, you know what? Last night wasn't good. And, it's weird, right? Because they had opening day. It was a lot of fun. You get the star-studded pitching matchups. You get Dylan Cease. You get Garrett Cole. You get Hunter Green. And then last night was just a small handful of games, really uninspiring. And the Dodgers didn't look well. Dustin May threw an absolute gem, and then, he has nothing to show for it. The Astros found a way to come back, but the Padres continue to be flat, man. Are you at all concerned about some of these teams that receive so much preseason hype like the Dodgers or the Padres, or you're just chalking up to it's early in the year, they're going to figure it out?
Yeah, so I look at the Padres like they were my pick to win the National League, and 2 days into the season, I am totally regretting that. But there's a lot of teams out there. You look at the Angels, we had a lot of high hopes for them. Shohei Ohtani throws an absolute gem, 10 strikeouts the other night. They get beat, right? So there's just so many teams that have stars on the mound that have not delivered with offense. With that being said, though, usually offense is going to take a little longer to develop, in my opinion. Guys got to get into a rhythm. They got to get locked in. It's different hitting in spring training versus the regular season. So if you can find a team early that's hitting, possibly the Yankees, we've seen them for one day. They showed up at the plate. Those could be the teams to lean on early at least.
So with that being said, before we touch into the best bets for today, because there are some better matchups and there are some better pitchers going this afternoon, this evening, on the futures board, give me your best of the season. Cy Youngs, World Series winners, MVPs, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so first off, win total wise, I do have one win total that I should say two win totals that I'm really high on. One in the American League and one in the National League. American League wise, I love the Boston Red Sox to go over 78.5 wins. I am wearing the Red Sox merch right now, so don't let that fool you. But when I look at Boston, at least the team's got a chip on their shoulder. What they were able to do in the opener, at least they were able to rally with a guy like Corey Kluber on the mound. Like, they're not going to do a whole lot with him there, but offensively they hit the ball, and that's what they need to do consistently to be special. And I do think they can get to that 80-81 win mark. So 78.5 is pretty generous there. And that's the number one most bet win total on DraftKings right now as well. And then another one that I love is the Arizona Diamondbacks over 74.5 wins. You saw them be able to compete. They have great pitching staff. Even the opener, the first 5 innings, they were in that game, right? So it's against probably the top team in baseball with the Dodgers. So those are 2 win totals that I absolutely love.
So you're referencing the Diamondbacks, and it's so funny because, and I've noticed this trend. If you go back to like 2009, 2010, every 5 or 6 years, they have a really good team. But in between that, they're horrible. It's like this. It's this weird trend. Like you'll see every 5 years, they're really good and they're competitive. But then it's just a long drought. And I think the Diamondbacks are a popular pick this offseason. I like them. I kind of wanted to take a little shot on them to win the NL, although, that's not going to happen this year. But I think next year and the year after, so 24 and 25 is where Arizona is really going to shine. They have a ton of prospects that aren't even up right now that might be up probably by 2025. You're going to be looking at like Drew Jones, Ivan Melendez, a big guy that I followed at Texas these past couple of years. They call him the Hispanic Titanic. This kid hit 32 home runs last year, setting the single-season college baseball record, breaking Chris Bryant's from, I want to say, like 2013. So they have a lot of star power, and obviously you get a guy like Corbin Carroll and Ketel Marte, and obviously Zach Gallen on the mound. So I'm really big on this Arizona team. I think they're going to be really competitive and honestly be competing for an NL West championship within 2 years, I would say. So Arizona, it's definitely possible that they're in the high 70s win range and almost ahead of schedule this year. So I'm big on that one, even if, a lot of the other people are as well.
Yeah, I mean, I love them with their pitching matchup. I mean, the top of the rotation is really good. They need some more hitters, I would say. You got a guy like Christian Walker, who's really solid, but they need to hit in high leverage situations and they need to pitch great to hit that number. But I think they're going to do that. As far as like my Cy Young winners and my MVPs, still looking to formulate some stuff. I usually wait just because I like to get a little more value instead of the beginning of the season. Because if you wait 2 weeks and see how guys are playing, you're still going to get a really good price for those. But right now, off the top, I'm thinking that a guy like Shohei Ohtani could win the American League Cy Young this year. When you look at Shohei, right, we can't give him MVP every single season. We just simply can't. It's just not. I don't think you can. And he has not won that Cy Young yet, right? So he had the MVP. Judge beat him out, and based on what I saw from him, now he pitched against a terrible A's team, and he was able to throw them off, right? But if he can do that consistently, go out and have a a 6 to 10 strikeout night, which would be amazing, 10, but get 6, and show up a little bit, I could see him doing something there in the American League. My American League MVP, I'm going to go off kill a little bit. I do love Yordan Alvarez to potentially be that guy. He's only 25 years old. He had 37 bombs last season. We already saw he has the power this year. Once he gets into a rhythm, and as he's getting better and better, I could see him winning the AL MVP as well.
I love Alvarez. I think he should be a threat every year. I just think they'll stick him in left field, but I think the fact that a lot of times he's DHing last year, they handicap you when that happens. Like, perfect example to me was JD Martinez, the year Mookie Betts won in 2018 in Boston, or 2019, if I'm not mistaken. You have to correct me on the year, but JD Martinez wasn't even on the ballot, and he batted like 330 with like 44 home runs and 120 RBIs. And Mookie Betts was like pretty much in the same ballpark as him, but he's playing Gold Glove center field, and because of that, Martinez wasn't even on the ballot as a finalist, and it didn't make any sense. So Alvarez, I would think, has to get at least probably 75, 80 games in the outfield to have a shot to be considered for that. But in terms of pure offense, I mean, Alvarez is one of the premier threats in the game that we have today. So I think taking him a good shot there for Yordan. Me personally, AL MVP, I hate to say it, but I had to go with Ohtani. Yeah. And I'm not doing it because I want to, but I just feel like in people's minds, Aaron Judge was so unbelievable last year, setting an AL record for 62 home runs, breaking Roger Maris. His record was like 60 years old. He literally picked up the Yankees and carried him, put him on his back, and took him to the playoffs. Without Aaron Judge, the Yankees are probably like an 82-win team, to be honest. Like, the Yankees were not good last year, but Aaron Judge made them look better than what they were. Despite all that, and despite the fact that the Angels won like 70-something games, they still wanted to give Ohtani the award. These people thought Judge wasn't the most valuable player in the MVP for the AL. I don't know what we're thinking. So if that's the case, I feel like they're going to think that Ohtani got robbed last year and this is a makeup year. So you're pretty much betting on him to stay healthy. Now, I don't like it. He was only 220 at the Open here on FanDuel, but I just think, considering the fact that if Ohtani goes 30 home runs this year and has 180 strikeouts, which is probably on the lower end of what we expect, the Angels could go 1-161 and he's still going to win it.
Yeah, and another thing too with Ohtani, the Angels got to make that decision to get rid of him at the deadline as well. So if he does go to a contender at the deadline, and the Angels aren't in the picture, that just helps his cause even more. I can't get on futures for 2-to-1 odds this point of the season. Like I'd rather. I mean, I'm not going to take Aaron Judge because I can't see him hitting 60 home runs again. Mike Trout's hard because he's the secondary piece of that Angels team, and then like a guy like Julio Rodriguez, I love, but it's hard to probably look better in the voters' eye than Shohei Ohtani. But we got to get over the Shohei Ohtani effect. Like, in my opinion, you just can't give him the MVP every single year because he pitches and hits. It's like something's got to change eventually. Yeah, 100% agree. And I was trying to make that case as well. I was like, well, what are we going to do? We're just going to give him the award every year because he's a great player and because he pitches and hits at an extremely high level. Like, that's all well and good, but no, you can't do that. And you can't just say, oh, well, it sucks that he's on a bad team, but we're just going to give it to him every year because we love him and we love to write about him. And no, it doesn't work like that. And it shouldn't work like that. And I think, the one good thing that would help the AL MVP tremendously is if Ohtani got traded to an NL team mid-season
which
Yeah.
is definitely possible. I know the Mets are really looking at him. And who knows if Justin Verlander is not right and he doesn't come back in a relatively swift time frame, or if he doesn't come back and look what they expected to because of this terrorist injury, this terrorist strain, the same thing that Tristan McKenzie has. Maybe Steve Cohen's would be like, we'll give you $500,000. Come on. We'll trade you a couple of prospects and we'll give you $500,000 on a sign and trade or something like that. And then in that case, I'm looking at like Vlad Guerrero at 17-1. I feel better about that. Or I feel better at Julio Rodriguez at 9.5-1. And, even like Adley Rutschman after a 5-for-5 day, and he went nuclear on opening day against the Red Sox with the home run in his first at bat. He's all the way up to 24-1 now. Like, it brings in all these different possibilities if Ohtani was to get traded, because now that's off the board, man. That guy's not winning the AL MVP if he goes to an NL team by the deadline. And then, you don't expect Judge to repeat, Trout with the injuries. And then really it's open season on anybody else, any one of these deep contenders here to pull this award off.
Yeah, that's a great strategy. I hadn't thought about that. I wish I would have. But yeah, that makes you almost a little more concerned to bet Ohtani at any point, whether he's 2-1 or he goes even longer odds.
So just because I kind of feel compelled, so what I do every year, I write up an article and I give preseason picks, just because I feel, I want to get something in for the preseason. And then, in terms of my betting strategy, I, like you say, wait until the season starts, see what we have, and then take, bits and pieces of guys here and there, depending on what their prices are. And, I think that is ultimately the strategy for the AL MVP, especially like if the Angels get out to a horrible start, by the end of May, if they're looking at as a 15-win team through the end of May, 20-win team, they might just pull the plug. They might say, we're not going to contend. Let's get what we can for Ohtani now. We'll scrap the whole thing. We'll rebuild. We have a lot of good prospects. I really love the kid, Zach Neto from Campbell, who was a top 15 pick. I watched him play at Campbell last year. He was awesome. He was hitting the cover off the ball in spring training. He got Ben Joyce from Tennessee, throws 105, really refined his fastball with movement, great sliders, learning how to pitch. So we're going to have some guys. So I think that's probably the best strategy for the AL MVP, because that one right now, in my opinion, that's the worst market to attack at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when it comes to futures, you're trading, you can either get high value or you can trade that value for a little more information, right? Like, I'm in no rush to bet a future on at least Shohei Ohtani at 2-1, because like I can put a little parlay together. I could take a dog. I could take the A's one night and get them for 2-1, right? I know you're probably going to put a little more money on a future than just a necessary, straight bet in one night. But I'm in no rush to bet these markets because, like you said, Adley Rutschman jumped up to 24-1. He had a great day. Hell, if I get him at 15-1 or 13-1, whatever it is, I'm still okay with that, knowing that he's playing better, right? So trade that value for information.
Yeah, and I think that's what people need to understand when you're betting futures. It's not just who you're betting, it's when you're betting them. And it's being able to kind of see maybe 2-3 steps ahead, because, sports books don't account for that. They don't account for, this could happen. They account for what they're seeing. They a lot of times just go off of money that they're taking in and facts, what they're seeing currently, not necessarily saying that, okay, well, we expect him to do this. And I think that's really where a lot of futures bettors find success. And I think that's an important strategy, where you can't just say, I like Aaron Judge and he's on the Yankees. Like, you have to understand he's not going to repeat last year, most likely. And, they're going to want to give it to somebody else. And that's why it's worth looking at somebody else down the board.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of times where people rush into future bets. Like, let's take college basketball, for example. You look at the UConn Huskies. They were very high on the board early in the season. They hit a little bit of a problem in the Big East, couldn't win on the road. They dropped a little bit. So if you would have got them early, you might have missed out on some value now, that if you waited till they started losing a little bit. Now you got to take the risk, though, to bet them at that time. Right. But value and information, definitely, you got to figure out where you fit on that scale when placing futures.
So perfect example, perfect example of that was, for me, AL Cy Young. My pick is Luis Castillo.
Okay. I love that.
I locked him in probably early February. I love Luis Castillo, and this is a guy that I was saying in 2018 was going to win the Cy Young, or 2019. I can't remember. 2018 or 2019, he was my pick to win the Cy Young on the Reds, because when I first saw him pitch, I'm like, there's no way this guy won't win a Cy Young in his career. And like he had a weird regression with injuries, and he lost himself. But once he got traded to Seattle last year, he looked reborn. He looked rejuvenated. He looked now engaged in the game of baseball again, because playing on a losing team like the Reds for so long is going to take its toll. Like, they were a non-contender most of the time that he was there. And 18-1 was really the best that I saw. And I actually didn't take any Castillo in the preseason on him by himself. And I didn't do the same thing with Julio Urias either. But my thought here was, all right, Castillo, he got down to 16-1. Like, that's okay. But in my opinion, Castillo is going to have a couple of these bad starts throughout the year, just because that's what he is. He has a lot of really good starts, but he'll have a couple blow-ups that might tank his number a little bit. And my thought was, all right, Castillo is going to get down to 21 to 24-1 at some point in the year. And I want to wait for that, and then I buy him, because if this guy is heading up the rotation for the Seattle Mariners, my opinion, going to be one of the best teams in the majors this year in the regular season. And I think they're going to win it all. Castillo's going to have a 2.3 ERA this year. He's going to have 190 innings, maybe 200 strikeouts. He's going to win 15, 16 games. He's going to be heading one of the best teams in baseball. He's going to be there at the end if that's the case. He's going to be on that final three ballot. And if I'm getting him in the 20-1, 21, 23-1 range, and I feel really good about that ticket.
Yeah, I mean, I love that decision to go with him at whatever price you can get him at, quite frankly, because when you look at that board, Garrett Cole was really good on opening day, obviously. I kind of have a vendetta against Garrett Cole. I'm not the biggest Cole fan. I don't think he rises to the occasion in the big spots, and I've seen that with the being a Red Sox fan. Dylan Cease, Jacob DeGrom. DeGrom, you just don't know if he can stay healthy. Shohei obviously is up there, but if they give him MVP, they're not going to give him Cy Young. Another thing, too, like getting traded, right? AL to NL. McClanahan, Rodon, Bieber, Castillo. I mean, Castillo can fit in with all those guys, and I think he's a great pick. The Mariners do have one of the best rotations in Major League Baseball. So with that being said, it's hard to go against him.
Yeah, and that was really the thinking behind it. But in terms of NL MVP, so like this is what we're talking about with value, right? Julio Urias, he is my true pick. And 20-1, he took a little tumble after his opening night start. Now he's he's 16-1. So right now, it looks like a bad decision that I didn't take him on his own. But again, Urias is a guy that I could see having a few bad starts, and he drifts more in the 25 to 30-1 at some point. And knowing the fact that right now he is the ace of the Dodgers. You don't have Walker Buehler. He's done. Dustin May is coming back from injury on his own accord. You're not going to expect 7 shutout from him every time he takes the mound. Kershaw is right now a number 3 at best. And Tony Gonsolin's hurt. And honestly, I don't even see Gonsolin as an ace myself. So, Urias is the class here. And if he does take a fall in the market, you're still expecting the Dodgers to win 95-plus games, be the class of the NL West, and arguably the 1 or the 2 seed. And if that happens, and Urias is pitching to what his capability is and what he did last year, again, this is another guy you're going to expect to be on the final 3 ballot and going to have a good chance to win, as long as like a Sandy Alcantara or somebody doesn't do what they did last year and go wire to wire absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, I mean, always look for those guys that are going to be there down the stretch. I mean, it's amazing Sandy got the job done on a team that wasn't that good, quite frankly, because voters want to reward the really good teams, right? That's what they see down the stretch. That's who they vote for. Sandy's going to be right up there again, but 5-1, 5.5-1, it's just not worth taking him, in my opinion. Like Corbin Burns, I love Corbin Burns, but you could take it from the perspective he might get traded at the deadline. They need to figure that out. And you also look at him too, like what happened with his contract early in the season. Does he really want to be with the Milwaukee Brewers? Like, is he going to show up every day, or is that going to get to his head later on down the season? I love Urias. I think that's a great pick. Justin Verlander's already beat up, right? So you just don't know. It's hard to make that decision when you're looking at such a great pitching staff. So I would rather wait a little bit. But he can fit in with all these names on the list: Scherzer, Strider, Gallen, Fried, Verlander, Urias, right? I love Zach Gallen at 10-1. I think he's going to be very, very special and be a Cy Young winner in the future. I don't know if it's this year because he is playing for the Diamondbacks, obviously. But considering Urias plays for the Dodgers and that's his price right now, it's definitely a good bet. And I could see him having some bad starts, like you said, and how much the market actually fluctuates based on one bad start.
And I think the interesting thing was Zach Gallen is the 2023 NL version of Dylan Cease. I was so high on Dylan Cease last year. He was my pick to win it all. He was my pick to lead the MLB in strikeouts. I'm a huge Dylan Cease guy. And, he comes up just short, and now the secret's out on him. There's no more secret on Dylan Cease. You know what he can do, and it just sucks when you're ahead of the curve, and then you're just right there and you miss it. I think, Zach Gallen, the secret's kind of out on this kid, and he was in the 16-1 range preseason, and now he's down to 10-1 after a solidish start against the Dodgers on opening day. And I'm a big Gallen fan myself, and I don't think in my opinion now's the time on him. I think he's gonna win one. I just don't think it's this year, especially competing on a team with the Diamondbacks that might win 75 games. He has to be Sandy Alcantara-esque from last year in order to pull that off. And then, you look at Scherzer, as great as Scherzer is, can he stay healthy at this point in his career? Fried's already dealing with a leg injury from opening day. So you really get here Sandy, Corbin, Scherzer, Strider, Gallen, Fried, Verlander, Arias. It really looks like right now Strider and Julio Arias is as two of the top options, in my opinion, when you're looking at the number. And then, you get Aaron Nola, who I never thought is a Cy Young winner. He's a guy who is a high strikeout guy. He's going to get you a lot of innings. That's his game. But he's like the NL Garrett Cole, except less dominant. He's gonna have that 3+ ERA. It's not going to get it done. And for my money, Zach Wheeler was the guy that I would have picked out of the Philly staff. I think he's way better than Aaron Nola is, and I just don't know why people don't see that. But I think the NL market, it really is wide open. So you can take a shot at some of these guys a little bit further down the board. And the guy that I took a shot in January, Tanner, at 100-1 was Hunter Green, because I really think that, if he gets his innings up and the way he ended last year, if he carried that over, he's going to have a good shot even on a bad Reds team. And, the fact is this kid is just so electric, and he's got the pedigree. He was a second overall pick in 2017. And, he had some shining moments against the Pirates. Also, we saw the little bit of the control and that kind of thing. But, for one start, and then you see Green really take a tumble throughout the winter. And, the 100-1 is looking really fine right now.
Yeah, I mean, any guy that throws 105, I'm happy to have a little ticket on him. I mean, that's crazy to see what he can do. But there is a big drop off, like you said. I do think Zach Wheeler's better than Aaron Nola. I think Urias is that point where it drops off, honestly. I mean, he could go one of two ways. He could go up or he could go down, right? I think that, Alcantara, Burns, Scherzer's getting up there. Like, I feel like Alcantara and Burns are kind of in that class of their own in a way. Like, those are the two top arms. And then there's a lot of guys that can fluctuate on both sides. But I wouldn't go any deeper than like an Urias. I wouldn't look at like a Brandon Woodruff or a Logan Webb or a Yu Darvish. Hunter Green, just because he's young, he throws hard, yes. But then you're getting to like Lodolo, Snell, Musgrove, Kershaw. And as much as I love a guy like Kershaw, he just not going to have the innings to put together another Cy Young season.
Yeah, you touched on a great point. I mean, right now, in terms of like what the numbers are, there's not a lot of attraction on this market. You're getting a lot of, you got Scherzer, you get Verlander, you get Fried, you get Corbin Burns, you get Sandy. But, you could find a real cause and a real problem with all these guys. And the fact that, some of these top options, you're not getting better than 8-1. It doesn't end up being very attractive.
No, definitely not. And that, like I said, that's how future bets work, right? Like sometimes they're attractive, sometimes they're not. Like the NL Cy Young is not the most attractive market to me when I'm looking at some of these other markets, at least. And quite frankly, the American League Cy Young, I feel a lot better about guys over there because I think the caliber of pitcher is better in the American League right now than it is in the National League. Even like, Christian Javier, who we saw throw last night, like he's down on the board in the American League, but he's still a really, really good wing. Robbie Ray, 41-1 right now. Robbie Ray, as much as he has, issues getting hit up, he still has elite strikeout ability. And he's down on the board. So there's a lot more wings in the American League that I can look at and say they have a chance to do something.
Yeah, completely agree. And, it's just, I think a lot of times, if you don't get the best of the number, sometimes you are better off waiting. And listen, it will sometimes bite you in the ass, but
Yeah.
I think ultimately there's ebbs and flows. Baseball is a very difficult game. You can have a pitcher that goes 2 blow-up outings in a row, and then all of a sudden, they get cut or they get almost doubled. And I feel like that is probably the best strategy, especially right now, if you didn't get one of these really good value. And, the market's kind of trending down on some of these guys after or trending up, I should say, in terms of value. Better off waiting.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the Shohei Ohtani narrative before. It's like, okay, I can get him at 2-1, and if I miss out on him, he goes to minus 500 after he's having a great season and no one's touching him. So be it. Like, I can get that value anywhere else, right? If I miss out, I miss out. But I'd rather wait and get a better number than jumping in right now at this point of the season, 1 to 2 games in, depending on what team you are, and overreacting to one great start or one great performance like Adley Rutschman. I want to see him play a little bit more. I know he's 5 for 5 and he's going to be a tremendous catcher, but he's still a catcher. Catchers do struggle to hit the baseball. Let's see what he can do. So that's kind of where I'm at with the future markets, at least. But I love talking about it. I love looking at it because it really takes a lot of examining to see, okay, is this a good time to jump in or do I need to wait? What's this guy's schedule look like over the next 2 weeks? What do I think he's going to do, right? And trying to get that good price.
Exactly. And that's how it's done in the futures. And I could talk about it all day, seriously. Like the futures markets, that's where the money's made. Any real bettor will tell you that's where the money is made in the futures markets. Like if you could pick up a handful of units throughout the season betting day by day, that's great.
Yeah.
But it's so difficult to be on day by day. And, there's so many things that don't go your way. And, betting is tough. Like the one possible slightest, narrowest thing that cannot happen for you to lose
always happens. It happens every night. Every night.
But when you're looking at futures over the course of a season, it's a lot harder for something like that to happen.
Yeah.
So
and you can hedge too. You have, as far as at least when you're betting on teams to win the World Series or teams to win the divisions and leagues, you have the opportunity to hedge late and stuff. And yeah, I mean, futures, you do make a lot of money. Baseball betting is so hard because we were talking before the show, even the best team like the A's will still win about 60 games this year. And, things are going to go wrong. Like last night I had the Astros money line and luckily they came through, but they were down 3-0 and they didn't, I could take a team like the Mariners last night who I had and they lost. So there's just so many times where you think the good pitching matchup is going to work out in your favor and it doesn't.
Yeah. Especially this is something that we're going to get a little bit better sample size on as the season goes on, just because, some of these teams have only played one game and it's hard to really take a good bite out of what they're doing and what they're about this year. And, we could do all the examining preseason that we want. And, a lot of times it ultimately does come to fruition, but nobody truly knows. You think or you have a good hunch or you expect something, but nobody can truly sit here and say X, Y, and Z is going to happen.
No, that's betting. I mean, that's why.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah. No, sports betting's hard.
It is very difficult. It's very difficult. So we touched on the futures. Now, in terms of day by day, what's your best Saturday plays on the board looking like this afternoon?
So knowing that a lot of teams have not played games, like you said, it can be hard and you're leaning more towards favorites there. But for a good price, I mean, I'm going to be on a lot of nerfies. There's a few nerfies that I absolutely love just because the wind and the pitching matchups and all that. So the first nerfie that I'm looking at, and also it just gets your heart rate going. That's why that's the drug of this, right? That's why we love it.
It's quick.
It's quick. It's like, nerfies make you feel a way that you've probably never felt before. And this may not be my best bet of a Saturday because it is a nerfie and it's, fluctuates and stuff. And, you might win, you might lose. One swing, you can lose it, like Aaron Judge the other day. But I'll start with these. So I really like the D-backs versus Dodgers nerfie. When you look at the wind is blowing in at extremely high rate. Home runs are down in this game. And then as far as the pitching matchup goes, you got Clayton Kershaw versus Madison Bumgarner. Bumgarner knows how to locate. He's experienced, doesn't have that same zip on his fastball like he used to. Obviously, he's not the mad bum of the old days, but he still is a reputable pitcher. And then Clayton Kershaw I mean, Kershaw just keeps like consistently delivering when he's out there, and he's not putting together, 200 inning seasons and all that anymore. Like, but he is just consistently out there. He knows how to fool batters. So for the first inning, I think he can get it done, especially with the home runs not being too much of a threat there. And then another one that I love, and the total set at 7 in this game. It was 6.5. Aaron Savali versus Logan Gilbert, Cleveland versus Seattle, Nerfy. Both guys can pitch, don't get me wrong, but this is the best wind matchup today for Nerfies. Wind blowing in extremely high rate. I believe the Nerfy did not hit last night. It hit the night before. So I'm going to be on that Nerfy as well. I think Logan Gilbert and Savali can get through the top of the order. Knowing the Guardians don't have too much pop at the top of the lineup, Seattle I'm a little more concerned about. But again, home runs are down by like 27% in this game because of the wind. So that's one that I'm going to look at. So those would be my 2 Nerfies.
I love how the Nerfies have just taken on a life of their own. Like last year's where they blew up. And I remember playing Nerfies. There was a handful of pitching matchups that I would look at for a Nerfie. Every time Corbin Burns played last season for like the first 10, 12 starts, I was on his Nerfie. Nerfie, strikeout props over. Burns was automatic. But then the problem is once Burns starts getting so good at the Nerfy, then you're starting to have to lay like 165, 170 every time out. And, it's just so hard to consistently repeat that. And, Nerfies are fun, man. They're electric. And I think probably the most electric bet that I've had, and I do, are the first pitches. There's just absolutely no data you can do. It's a true bet. It's like a roulette wheel. You just don't know. Like the first pitch is Shane McClanahan's first pitch going to be a strike? Is it going to be a ball? Is it going to be a hit? Like it's so electric. It literally happens in 1 second. And that's probably my favorite thing to do in terms of like that. In my opinion, that requires like no skill.
Yeah.
That requires absolutely no skill.
Good prices for those too. Yeah. I mean, like the other day I was looking, I didn't play any of those markets, but like strike was like -135 and balls like +140 or +130. Like Garrett Cole came out in his start. He was electric, but I think he walked the first guy on 4 straight balls, right? Like he couldn't find it. Especially in the cold early in the season, you can capitalize on some of those. So if I got those though, if it was like strike, ball, hit, whatever, I'm just going to play the plus money and hope for the best there. Because that's the way it is. But another bet that I really do like today, we were talking about the Phillies pitching staff, Zach Wheeler versus, Nathan Eovaldi. Yep. I think Wheeler is the ace of that staff, and the way Philly blew that game on opening day, they're going to be out for revenge there. You didn't get any production from Kyle Schwarber. He was 0 for 5. That was a big issue for them. And they just blew up. It was really one bad inning that led to a loss. So Nathan Eovaldi, I'm expecting him to be pretty good, but I think Zach Wheeler can tame this Texas lineup. And for -120 right now, I'll ride with Philly there, hoping that Schwarber can get involved a little bit and they can do some offensive production.
I think that's the right side as well. That's one of I only have 2 plays today on the MLB card. That is one of my favorite. Zach Wheeler. I think the Phillies win. I picked the Phillies to win the World Series preseason last year. They kind of upset me when they didn't. But Zach Wheeler, man, I think people are kind of done on him, and I don't really know why. He's got a lot left in the tank. It's just the injuries. Last year he was hurt to start the season, but he still had a pretty good year. And he's not 40. He's 33. He's got a few good seasons left in pitching. And I know this guy's been a workhorse over the last couple of seasons, but, I'm big on Wheeler, and I think he gets off to a good start in a revenge spot. The Phillies are going to get after Texas. It's just so bizarre. You touched Jacob deGrom in his first start back, as a Ranger, and then you look like you're cruising to a big win, and then you blow it. I think that doesn't sit well with them, and they're going to come back. They're only -122 right now on FanDuel. So I like the Phillies in the money line, but I actually officially put out this. Wheeler, 5+ Ks and a Phillies win. One of those player performance doubles, which is pretty much like a parlay. I think Wheeler's going to come out 6 strong innings, 2 runs, 7 strikeouts. Phillies win. I think Philadelphia is definitely the right side here, and my fair price on them today should be about -145, not -122.
Yeah, I absolutely love that play. And then my final, official play that I'm looking at today, Rockies Padres under 8.5, knowing how poor the Padres have hit the baseball lately. They have not shown up one bit. I think not having Fernando Tatis in the lineup is just I mean, not that it makes a difference. We haven't seen him yet, but I think this lineup's going to be a lot scarier when they do add him to the mix. Arena, better splits on the road than at home, makes sense, obviously, because he's pitching in Colorado. And we've seen that from the Rockies pitchers. They've been able to shove. Michael Wacha, great season with the Boston Red Sox last year. I think he carries that in against the Rockies lineup that isn't great, quite frankly. I mean, they've scored more than the Padres, but they haven't been lighting the scoreboard up by any means. And when you look at the wind in this game as well, under is the move here. I think home runs are down by 15% in this one. And this is another one I'm looking at for a potential nerfy as well, but I do like the under of 8.5.
So that one's interesting because, the Padres, Petco Park in and of itself, that's a tough place to hit home runs. And
yeah,
I think ultimately the one thing that bothers me with the Padres right now through their first 2 games, I'm tired of these launch angles. Like, just put the ball in play. I couldn't tell you how many times I saw a pop-up or a weak fly ball. You Manny Machado dipping the hip, dipping the elbow, trying to launch it out. Like, no, just put the ball in play. Like, everybody wants to hit home runs. Everybody cares about exit velo and launch angle over the last, 5 years. I'm tired of it. What happened to just put the ball in play, move runners over? Like that brand of baseball still works. I know it's not flashy. I know you want to hit the 450-foot moonshots, but I don't really love what I'm seeing here. And I think these guys are trying to hit home runs, trying to do too much as opposed to just get on base, get a base hit, steal, move them over, play a little small ball, manufacture runs in different ways. It's like, in my opinion, right now, San Diego looks like a team that if they don't hit home runs, they're going to lose. Live by the long ball, die by the long ball. And, when you're playing in a place like Petco Park, despite having a lot of superstars in your lineup, you're not going to win very many games if that's your philosophy.
Yeah, I saw Rafael Devers on opening day. I mean, speaking of living by the long ball, I mean, he had a chance to break the game or put the Red Sox, I think, tie the game up against the Orioles late, and he struck out on 3 pitches because he's taking big hacks when you just got to put the ball in play. So we see that a lot in today's world. It's all about launch angle and elevating the baseball because home runs mean so much. But if you just put the ball in play and you make the defense work, you're going to be a good team. That's what we see from teams like the Rays and teams that don't necessarily have the money to go out and spend big money, right? So putting the ball in play does work.
It does, absolutely. And I would say, so my final play here, I'm going to go with Spencer Strider over 6.5 strikeouts against the Washington Nationals. This guy had nearly a 14 K through 9. He only threw 131, 32 innings last year as a rookie. That's absolutely outrageous. And, Strider right now might step into the ace role if Max Fried misses an extended period of time. And, I'm expecting big things from Strider, as a lot of people are, but take out the season-long aspects, and we're just looking at today, he gets to face the Washington Nationals. And it's not the Nationals that he faced last year. There's no Juan Soto in this lineup. There's no Nelson Cruz in this lineup. The best hitter is Joey Meneses. I like Joey Meneses. I think he's a very good hitter, but that's the best you're going to deal with. And Strider, he struck out of his last 15 starts last year, 7 or more in 11 of them. This guy is putting up the punch outs. So you're going to give me a low total in his first start where, I think Strider is not going to be too on a leash. I think he's probably going to get 90 pitches, 95 pitches if it's not high stress. I think that's good value, man. I still think, fair enough, 6.5 should be more in the minus 145 range for Spencer Strider. And I would definitely take a chance on it if you can get anything better than minus 130, because ultimately, I expect him to mow down 8 or 9 Nationals today. They are a rebuilding franchise. They are one of the worst teams in baseball. And Spencer Strider has some of the elite stuff in the major leagues. He can find many ways to get you out with his pitches via the strikeout. So I think today this is a no-brainer. This is my best bet on the board, Spencer Strider.
Yeah, I mean, the Nationals and the Athletics are competing for the worst record in baseball, so that's a good move there. I do think Strider shows up. I've stayed off props early on. I got hurt a little bit props day 1 of the season, just total base props and stuff. And I did hit Scherzer strikeouts, which was nice, but props have not been my thing through day 1. So I'm just going to go with what I know, nerfies, and hopefully a couple straight bets, and see if I can do something before the college games start tonight.
Yeah, speaking of, I can't wait. I'm on FAU. I took FAU's money line. I can't bet UConn Miami right now because I'm in Connecticut. It sucks. So I got to wait till I go to Jersey, then find which way I'm going. Who you got in that game?
So I have UConn. I don't know if they're going to cover the 5.5. So I did a teaser, and I never recommend doing teasers in college basketball, but I did it for this case. I took FAU up to 7.5, and I took UConn down to -0.5. So
what's that, like -120?
Yeah, -120. So
Nice.
that's worth it for me. I mean, I'll probably put extra money on UConn live when Miami goes on a run tonight, because they're like -255 right now. And I think there's going to be opportunities to bet UConn. And I do think UConn wins. I like San Diego State to win the game outright. I just think the way they play, they don't score a lot of points. They don't blow a lot of teams out. FAU's been very pesky against good basketball teams. I think FAU's within 7.5 points tonight if they lose.
Well, I hope they win, because I took FAU on the money line here for a nice plus money dog. I'm looking at the Owls, man. And I know we're talking baseball, but just in terms of basketball, I think the strategy for me, just the way I've seen Miami play, I don't know if I'm going to bet that game like to start. I think I'm going to keep my eye on it and maybe hit a live bet. I might look for Miami to get down 10 points and then look to live bet them and then take a shot. Because last week, dude, so I had a Texas-San Diego State parlay on Sunday. San Diego State barely hits.
Yeah.
Texas looking so good. They look like bring a nice parlay home. They're up like 15 points, and then they end up losing. And I was watching the game as it happened, live time. I'm like, okay, I don't want to have to get a little too much excitement here. So I end up trying to middle it. I took Miami live at like +4.5 because I waited. When Miami was like +10.5 and they were like +1,000 on the money line, I was like, I'm not going to take Miami to win. They're not going to win. But I want to wait a little bit before I put this +10.5 in, because maybe, Texas goes on a run and that all of a sudden becomes +13.5 or whatever. Didn't happen. So Miami they're a pest. And I think ultimately getting them live, even against a great program like UConn, it's not a bad bet. So that's one of those things that I'm going to be looking at today for that game.
Yeah, I mean, Miami doesn't play a lot of defense, but in the NCAA tournament, they've played a ton of defense, right? So now they're a very dangerous team. And, the way these books work, if UConn goes on a little run early, especially if UConn's up 10 points, you're going to get 15, 16 points, probably 15. I would say they're going to add that 5 onto the 10 and give you 15.5 there. Probably, yeah, in that range. You're going to get a good price.
From college basketball to college baseball, before we get out of here, we'll touch on a couple games. So, Tanner, what I like to do on the show every Saturday is recap the best and worst of what I saw on Friday. So, for the college baseball slate, I have to say, start with the worst. The worst was Florida, South Carolina, Arkansas. These are 3 top 10 teams. They all got blown outright on a Friday night. So South Carolina played Thursday and they didn't even throw their best starter. So last night they threw Noah Hall, who's typically their Saturday guy. They got banged around really good. And this was against an Ole Miss or a Mississippi State team that had lost 9 in a row in the SEC to start the year. So actually, I think the losing streak was 18. So they were due for one, but, they lost 13-3. And then Florida with their ace on the mound, he couldn't find a strike zone. They lost 10-1. And then Arkansas with now their Friday guy on the mound, they lost, I think, 10-1 or 11-1 as well. So that had to be the worst for me. I would say Friday's best, though, had to be Jacksonville. They beat top 25 ranked Florida Gulf Coast. And this was something that I was looking at early yesterday, kind of previewing that. We're talking about these big plus money dogs in college baseball. Jacksonville was +175, +180 yesterday against Gulf Coast. And what I think the books do, they look at these teams that are top 25 and they go, oh, well, they're top 25. They're playing an unranked team. They're playing a mid-major program that nobody knows anything about. So this is where you can take advantage of some good markets like that. So really, really pleased with what I saw from Jacksonville. And then one more of my best, I would probably have to say Wake Forest, man. I know they're playing Clemson, but after putting it on Clemson on Thursday night, they find different ways to win. This Wake Forest team is a force to be reckoned with. I think they are the best team in college baseball, front to back. They're the deepest, and that includes against LSU. So, the Demon Deacons are finding different ways to win ball games, and that's what's so dangerous about them. They can outslug you 15-0, or they could win 2-1. It doesn't matter what it is. And one more will be the Miami Hurricanes against Florida State. coming off of a sweep at Wake Forest, they respond, and they respond with authority with an 11-0 victory against their ACC rivalry, Florida State, who, the market still kind of likes, and I don't understand it. Florida State has no chance to win this year. They don't have the horses. So really happy with what I saw from those teams.
Yeah, definitely. When it comes to college baseball, it's all about the SEC, and I will be getting into it when we get closer to Omaha time. But right now, I know LSU they're going to be very tough to beat, I would say. But like we were saying before, it's like find those teams like the Jacksonvilles, right? Or not Jacksonville, but find the teams that you can get a good price on, because college baseball is very volatile. College basketball is volatile too, right? So find those dogs that can make you money, and you're probably gonna be pretty happy.
So speaking of, yesterday was a handicap on my other show, Breaking Bet, on Bet Karma with Matt Grissom. This Texas-Oklahoma State Big 12 matchup is always an interesting one. And so a lot of times, what I hate that these markets, that these sites don't do, they don't let you bet the series prices in the regular season. If they did, I feel like I would make even more money. It'd be even better. Because a lot of times it's looking at the pitching matchups. That is what dictates so much of the numbers. So for me, I saw this, and I saw the matchup here that number 21 Texas, who has gone on a heater, they won 14 straight coming into yesterday. They were throwing their Friday guy, their ace, Lucas Gordon, who for some reason threw 50 pitches in a midweek game against Texas A&M because they really wanted to beat him. But he was good to go. He pitched really well. Texas wins. And that's what I had. I had Texas winning last night. But then today, for the game 2, Oklahoma State. Because Oklahoma State is throwing their best guy today, Warren Watts-Brown, a Long Beach State transfer. So that's kind of like previewing exactly how a series might go. And if you're trying to play out the role in the scenario of which way the wind's going to blow. And that's kind of what I saw was, all right, Texas with their best pitcher is going to take Friday night. They're red hot right now. They're going to keep it going. And then Saturday night, you're going to turn around. You're going to get number 17, Oklahoma State, even up this series with their best guy on the mound and silence an offense that's been scoring at a pretty decent clip. And then Sunday, to me, wasn't really something that I was looking at, just because Sundays are also like a crapshoot in college baseball.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Series, I mean, it's like we were talking before, DraftKings, great book to bet on for college baseball. Not everyone's going to give you those prices. So you got to find good prices. You got to find a book that offers it for college baseball. And there's so many opportunities to take advantage of bookmakers because they don't focus as much on college baseball. They're focused on college basketball and MLB. But I would agree. I'd take Oklahoma State today. And then tomorrow we'll see what happens. Probably won't be looking at it, but Oklahoma State I like today.
Yes, for sure. Minus 122. And that's kind of how you see the market move. And you predict the market movement here, because Oklahoma State was minus 130 to Texas's even money plus 100 yesterday. And then it tightened up a little bit. Now today it's almost a pick 'em. And so like, that's kind of where you're taking advantage of the numbers and you're getting the best of the prices. So next game here, Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets plus 105 at number 14, Boston College Eagles minus 135. Boston College is awesome this year. They're so good, but I don't think they're a team that I really would consider a threat to even make the College World Series. I feel like they'll make the regionals. They might make the super regionals, but this is becoming a thing every week with me. Yesterday, I also dissected how this series is going to go. I don't bet Boston College on their game ones. And yesterday they were about plus 110 dogs to Georgia Tech. It was a nail biter. Came down to the end. They lost by 1 run. And the reason why I wait till Saturday or game 2 to bet Boston College is because their best pitcher goes, Chris Flynn. Chris Flynn has been one of the top pitchers in the country. He got beat up a little bit last week by NC State, but by all measure, he's been great. He doesn't throw particularly hard. He topped out at like 91, 92, but he's got great movement. He knows how to pitch in and out, change speeds, all that good stuff. So the key element to college baseball is grabbing the lines the night before, because overnight they will move. And that's what I did with Boston College in expectation and in preparation for grabbing this. Got Boston College at even money last night. Wake up this morning, they're out to minus 130, minus 135. Now, I don't know if people know Chris Flynn's pitching today, and that's why, and that's what they've come to know with the strategy. But that's a big difference that you're grabbing it last night versus this morning with a $35 difference.
Yeah, you got to get in on the right time. Flynn's been fantastic, and I think probably the casual college baseball fan will see that he didn't go on Friday night, not knowing that he pitched on Saturday, and take advantage of it, overnight, which caused the line to shift there. So Flynn on the mound, hard to go against BC, even at minus 135, good price still.
The one concern though is Jackson Finley, two-way player for Georgia Tech. The kid pitches really well, and he's hitting the crap out of the ball. But I still think, in a bounce back spot for Boston College after last night's loss, they haven't really been losing very many series this year, and you don't get to number 14 overall by losing a series. So I think at the bare minimum they're going to even it up today, and I would say my fair price is out to minus 150 for these guys, even against a tough Georgia Tech team that likes to push better teams around.
Yeah, totally agree with that.
All right, last one here. We have the Oregon State Beavers at minus 145 at the Washington Huskies at plus 115. So for anybody that doesn't know, I'm a huge Washington Huskies guy. They are they're not a sung hero. They're very quiet. They're very unsung. They're not a top team in the country. They don't have a lot of firepower, but they have a couple studs. And those guys are on the mound. So last night, well, I should say actually Thursday night, I took Washington at plus 165. That's what they opened up at against Oregon State, who is a more renowned team, is a team that does spend time in the top 25, team that hosts regionals, team that won the College World Series with Adley Rutschman in 2018. They're 165. Then Friday morning, they're down to 145. Market agreement, that's what I expect, and I'll tell you why in a second. But then the game gets rained out last night, and they're playing a doubleheader today. So now what happens is there's more movement. So now this team that was plus 165 is down to plus 115 in Washington for a doubleheader. And typically, I don't like to bet doubleheaders, but Washington's got two really good pitchers at the top of their rotation. I don't like the plus 115, like I said, but I still think Washington is the play for game one. And the reason is they have a guy by the name of Kiefer Lord on the mound. He's rapidly shooting up the top 100 prospects. He's a junior transfer from Carleton. The guy's got high 90s fastball stuff with a 12-6 curveball, very unorthodox delivery, but the kid has pitched fantastic this year. And if some miracle they throw their number two, Stu Feinlinzer, the third, he's also pitched really well, I think, to like a 2.35 ERA this year. So I think Washington, even against a guy like Trent Sellers, the Friday guy for Oregon State, they can outlast him because this Beavers offense really isn't that good. They don't have boppers. They lost guys like Jacob Melton, Pac-12 Player of the Year. He went to the Astros with Tennessee's first rounder, Drew Gilbert. And I think for a plus money play, Washington is the side. But ultimately, I would have liked to get them more in the plus 140 range than we are today.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how the doubleheader plays out. I would probably stay away because of that, but I don't want to play Oregon State at minus 145 here. I'd rather be on the plus money and take the chance there.
Yeah, the Pac-12 is a very volatile conference too. This is one of the conferences where you can get a lot of the upset picks at any given time just because, the best team in the Pac-12 is Stanford. And in my opinion, Stanford's not that good. They're like the LA Dodgers of college baseball. They ooh and ah. They're going to have first rounders. They're going to have a couple first rounders this year. They're going to have a couple first rounders next year. They're going to probably win the conference, maybe make the College World Series. But they're like the Dodgers. Once they get to the postseason, they fall flat on their face. They very rarely win. I mean, look at the last time that these guys won. But one more if I wanted to preview real quick. The teams I expect to bounce back from, the Floridas, the Arkansas, the South Carolinas. I expect Vanderbilt to stay hot. Vanderbilt is on a seven-game win streak this season in the SEC, and they're playing a bad Georgia team. And then the last one here I would say is the Tennessee Volunteers avoiding the sweep against LSU. I'm personally not betting on this game. Tennessee is nothing like they were last year. The team they had last season was arguably one of the best college teams ever assembled. And I think their team last year is better than LSU's team this year. They're deeper. They had a better bullpen. But Tennessee so far this series and this year, they're finding ways to lose games. They lose game one. They hang with Paul Skeens, really tough. And then because of a boneheaded fielding error, they end up giving up 3 runs in the bottom of the 8th when they should have been out of the inning. Yesterday, they lose they lose by 2 runs. They lose 6-4. And then today you get a really good Sunday pitching matchup on Drew Beam for Tennessee, who's the best Sunday guy in college baseball. He's going to be a first rounder most likely next year. And as well as Thatcher Hurd, who I think is probably going to be a top 5 pitcher next year off the board. I don't know if I see Tennessee getting swept, but I'm staying off this game. I hope the Vols avoid the sweep because they're going to take another tumble in the rankings here. So for plus 155, I do think the Volunteers are worth a stab today.
Yeah, I don't want to bet against LSU, so that'd be my take. But I'll be locked in on college basketball pretty much the rest of the day, so not betting this one as well.
As will I. But Tanner, thank you so much for joining us today. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, so you guys can find me just at Tanner Kern on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. TikTok's my biggest following over there. So I do a lot of baseball, MLB content specifically, and betting in general. So those will be the best places to find me for sure.
Sounds good, man. Really appreciate it. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at _JohnnyVTV. And Tanner, new friend to the show, man. Look forward to having you on really soon. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Johnny. Appreciate it.
All right. Best of luck, everybody. And we'll see you next week.